The 1990s was a decade where science fiction films didn't just entertain, they pushed boundaries, sparked controversy, and made audiences question the future. From disturbing virtual realities to dystopian futures, these films explored dark themes of technology, power, and humanity's relationship with both. Many faced severe censorship, with governments and studios alike trying to suppress their unsettling messages. Whether it was the terror of genetic manipulation, the dangers of unchecked militarism, or the horrors of technological overreach, these films dared to show us worlds we weren't ready to face, worlds that, in some ways, feel eerily close to our own today. Species, 1995. A genetically engineered alien hybrid created to save humanity ends up being humanity's greatest threat. The premise of Species was controversial from the start, thanks to its unnerving blend of science fiction and horror. The film follows a team of scientists who, after receiving a transmission from an alien race, genetically engineer a human-alien hybrid. But things go terribly wrong when the creature, Syl, escapes, looking for a mate to reproduce with, and she's willing to kill anyone in her path. What made the film so shocking wasn't just the graphic violence, but the unsettling suggestion that nature's primal instincts could be manipulated. In some countries, Species was heavily censored due to its mix of terror and sexuality, forcing filmmakers to rethink their approach to the alien's violent sexuality. Today, it remains one of the most disturbing depictions of bioengineering, a sci-fi warning about tampering with nature's balance. Dark City, 1998. In a city where the sun never rises, Dark City presents a labyrinthine nightmare that messes with both memory and reality. Directed by Alex Proyas, this neo-noir science fiction film was a box office disappointment upon release, but it has since achieved cult status. The story follows John Murdoch, who wakes up with amnesia in a city where the inhabitants are constantly manipulated by mysterious beings known as the Strangers. As Murdoch uncovers the truth, he realizes that his city is being controlled, with his memories altered and his fate sealed. What made Dark City so chilling wasn't just the claustrophobic, Art Deco-inspired set design or the shadowy figures lurking around every corner. It was the movie's refusal to spoon-feed its audience answers, forcing them to grapple with its deeply philosophical questions. Today, Dark City is a brilliant exercise in surrealism, exploring the terrifying consequences of memory manipulation and identity loss. Existence, 1999. David Cronenberg's Existence is a dive into a digital nightmare where reality and virtual reality blur until neither is distinguishable. This psychological thriller follows Allegra Geller, a video game designer who finds herself in a deadly game of survival when her latest creation, a virtual reality game, is hijacked. As the line between game and reality becomes dangerously thin, Geller must navigate a world that shifts under her feet. The film's groundbreaking use of body horror, paired with its disturbing exploration of virtual identity, made Existence a controversial watch. What made the movie so unsettling wasn't just the graphic body modifications, but its unflinching look at the dark side of digital immersion and the fragility of our reality. The movie was censored in several countries for its disturbing imagery and thought-provoking questions about the nature of existence. Now, Existence feels eerily prophetic in an age where digital and physical worlds collide.
Total Recall, 1990. Imagine you're a man living in a future where memories can be implanted and nothing is what it seems. Total Recall is an explosive ride through Mars, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Douglas Quaid, a construction worker who discovers he's actually a secret agent whose memories were erased. What makes this film so fascinating is its exploration of memory, identity, and paranoia, pushing the limits of what a man is willing to believe about himself. The graphic violence and iconic special effects make Total Recall unforgettable, but the real brilliance lies in its philosophical undertones. The original cut was nearly banned in some countries due to its explicit violence, with scenes of gore and body horror edited out for international releases. Today, the film stands as a seminal work of sci-fi, questioning how much of our reality we can trust. Total Recall isn't just an action movie, it's a deep dive into the mind, where truth and illusion are constantly at war. Crash, 1996. David Cronenberg's Crash pushed cinematic boundaries to the edge of discomfort with its unflinching portrayal of human sexuality and technology. Based on J.G. Ballard's provocative novel, the film follows a group of people who become sexually aroused by car crashes, exploring the intersection of violence, trauma, and eroticism. When it debuted at Cannes, it sparked an international firestorm, banned in several countries and condemned by critics who were disturbed by its taboo subject matter. What made Crash so controversial wasn't just its daring premise, but its cold, clinical approach that refused to moralize, making audiences complicit in the characters' obsessions. Cronenberg's decision to keep the film devoid of judgment made it one of the most divisive films of its era. Despite its harsh reception, Crash remains an audacious exploration of how modern society's obsession with technology and violence has seeped into our desires. Today, it is recognized as an unsettling commentary on disconnection in the age of digital intimacy. Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. Keanu Reeves stars in Johnny Mnemonic, a cyberpunk thriller that's as wild as its premise, a data courier with a computer implant in his brain, carrying sensitive information he must deliver before it kills him. Set in a dystopian future dominated by powerful corporations, this film was a visual and thematic leap into the world of digital information warfare and body augmentation. However, its bold narrative and intense violence resulted in heavy censorship across international markets. What made Johnny Mnemonic so controversial was its critical take on the corporatization of humanity and the dangers of digital overload, which felt ahead of its time in 1995. The film was edited in several countries, with scenes of violence and gore trimmed to make it more palatable for mainstream audiences. Despite its flaws, Johnny Mnemonic stands as an early meditation on the impact of the internet and corporate control, capturing a techno-dystopia that's now eerily familiar. Mars Attacks, 1996. Tim Burton's Mars Attacks took a satirical, star-studded jab at the 1950s alien invasion genre, but its dark humor and merciless mockery of political leadership led to censorship worldwide. The film's absurd, over-the-top portrayal of Martians destroying Earth's landmarks and politicians caused panic among authoritarian regimes, with several countries banning it outright for its portrayal of incompetent leadership. The violence was not what troubled authorities, it was the biting political satire, the depiction of government officials as bumbling fools in the face of a crisis. Mars Attacks was a response to the political climate of the time, using humor to showcase the incompetence of world leaders when faced with global-scale events. While it wasn't universally loved, its dark, anarchistic spirit set it apart from typical alien invasion movies, offering a subversive take on leadership and authority. Today, Mars Attacks holds up as an underappreciated gem, a reminder of Burton's unique vision in a time when satire felt too bold for mainstream audiences.
Event Horizon, 1997. Event Horizon is a space horror masterpiece that blends deep space exploration with cosmic terror. The film follows a rescue crew investigating a lost spaceship that disappeared into a black hole and returns with something malevolent on board. What set this film apart wasn't just its chilling premise, but the disturbing psychological and visual horrors it unleashed. The initial cut of the film was so disturbing that over 30 minutes of the most nightmarish footage, including a notorious blood orgy scene, was cut before release. Test screenings reportedly left audiences vomiting and fainting. What terrified the studio was not only the gore, but the existential terror of a ship possessed by an evil dimension. Event Horizon remains one of the most notorious films for studio interference and censorship, with the original cut lost to history, deteriorating in a salt mine.
The current version still delivers an eerie experience, but what could have been is forever a lost cosmic horror nightmare. Gattaca, 1997. Set in a dystopian future where genetic engineering determines a person's place in society, Gattaca became an instant sci-fi classic, not because of its futuristic technology, but for its chilling message about discrimination and human potential. The film follows Vincent Freeman, a man born naturally in a world that values genetic perfection, as he struggles to achieve his dream of space travel by assuming the identity of a genetically superior man. What made Gattaca so controversial was its attack on the idea of genetic determinism, a concept that felt too real for some, especially in the context of the rapid development of genetic research at the time. Several countries pressured distributors to minimize its release, fearing it would raise uncomfortable questions about the ethics of genetic manipulation. Gattaca stands as a timeless meditation on human will versus scientific control, asking whether a society obsessed with genetic perfection is truly living. Today, it remains one of the most powerful films questioning the limits of science and the value of individualism. Virus, 1999. Virus is a chilling exploration of technology gone wrong, mixing deep-sea horror with a post-apocalyptic twist. The film follows a salvage crew that discovers a Russian research vessel overrun by an alien electrical entity that begins fusing humans with machines. What made Virus so controversial wasn't just the graphic body horror, but the film's unsettling themes of artificial intelligence and the fear of technology taking over humanity. Released just as fears about Y2K and the Millennium Bug were at their peak, Virus capitalized on anxieties about technological collapse and AI's potential for rebellion. Censored in multiple countries for its disturbing imagery, the film's vision was seen as too ahead of its time. Today, Virus remains a cult classic for fans of body horror and digital nightmares, questioning our increasing reliance on machines. The uncut version, available on streaming platforms, uncovers a much darker and more thought-provoking film about human imperfection and the technological future. Fortress, 1993. In a dystopian future where population control is enforced by a totalitarian government, Fortress presents a chilling look at privatized prisons and surveillance society. Starring Christopher Lambert, the film follows a couple imprisoned in a high-tech facility for having a second child, a crime in a world where reproduction is strictly regulated. The government uses behavior control implants to punish disobedience, turning the prison into a nightmare of control and manipulation. What made Fortress so controversial wasn't just its action sequences, but its sharp critique of government control and surveillance. The film was heavily censored in conservative markets, particularly for its anti-family planning message and the chilling portrayal of a society where even procreation is controlled by the state. Today, Fortress feels eerily prophetic, as its warnings about privatized punishment and surveillance technologies resonate more than ever in an age of increasing state control and technological surveillance. Strange Days, 1995. Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days is a visceral dive into the world of illegal virtual reality recordings, where people can experience the most intimate and violent moments of others' lives. Set in a dystopian 1999 Los Angeles, the film follows an ex-cop who sells these VR experiences, including death, to thrill-seeking clients. The film was initially rated NC-17 by the MPAA for its extreme violence, forcing cuts to achieve an R rating. What shocked audiences and censorship boards wasn't just the film's explicit violence, but the uncomfortable first-person perspective that put the viewer directly in the shoes of the criminals. The controversy surrounding Strange Days grew as the film tackled issues of voyeurism, body cameras, and police brutality, topics that were ahead of their time. Today, Strange Days is recognized as an eerily prophetic vision of the future, exploring how technology could allow us to experience the worst of humanity at a distance. Its uncut version reveals a darker, more prophetic commentary on the implications of digital voyeurism and society's obsession with violence. Universal Soldier, 1992. In Universal Soldier, Roland Emmerich's sci-fi action film about reanimated soldiers created from the dead for military purposes, the real battle isn't just between the super soldiers, but between humanity and the military-industrial complex. Starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, the film follows two soldiers killed in Vietnam who are resurrected as part of a secret government program. What made Universal Soldier so controversial wasn't just its action sequences, but its anti-military themes, suggesting that the military would exploit dead soldiers for their own purposes. The film was heavily censored in countries where anti-American sentiment was strong, particularly for its portrayal of American military misconduct. The controversial flashbacks showing war crimes committed by American soldiers were cut in several international markets. Despite being dismissed as a mindless action flick by critics, Universal Soldier subverts its genre, using its explosive action to explore the moral consequences of military experimentation and the psychological toll of war. Starship Troopers, 1997. Starship Troopers is a brilliantly satirical film that masterfully mocks fascism and militarism while also serving as a scathing critique of propaganda. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, the film follows a group of soldiers who fight an intergalactic war against alien bugs with a militarized society that glamorizes violence and war. The film was heavily censored in multiple countries for its graphic violence and the way it portrayed the glorification of warfare, leading to bans in places like Germany and Malaysia. What made Starship Troopers so controversial wasn't just the gore, but its portrayal of fascistic values and a society obsessed with propaganda, something that many critics failed to recognize. Instead of celebrating war, Verhoeven used exaggerated fascist imagery to critique how easily societies can be manipulated through media and propaganda. While it initially received criticism for being too on the nose, Starship Troopers has since been reassessed as a brilliant satirical masterpiece, finally recognized for its darkly humorous take on militarism and its chillingly relevant political commentary. Demolition Man, 1993. Demolition Man is a satirical take on a future where political correctness and authoritarianism have created a society so sanitized that basic human desires are illegal. In this future, all bodily fluids, inappropriate language, and even physical contact are prohibited. The film stars Sylvester Stallone as a cop who's frozen in cryogenic prison and reawakened decades later to hunt down a violent criminal, Wesley Snipes, in a society that has completely lost its edge. What made Demolition Man so controversial was its bold criticism of political correctness and corporate control, mocking a society where personal freedom has been sacrificed for safety. The film was initially rated NC-17 before edits brought it down to an R, but what really troubled authorities was its daring political satire and the suggestion that a sanitized future might not be a utopia at all. Today, Demolition Man feels more prescient than ever, as debates around speech policing and the loss of personal freedoms have become central issues. Its critique of corporate control, censorship, and social sterilization now resonates in a way that feels disturbingly relevant. The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996. The Island of Dr. Moreau is a deeply unsettling film about genetic manipulation, human-animal hybrids, and the question of what it means to be human. Starring Marlon Brando in one of his most bizarre performances and Val Kilmer at his most erratic, the film follows a shipwrecked man who finds himself trapped on an island where Dr. Moreau conducts horrific experiments on animals, turning them into human-like creatures. What made the film so controversial wasn't just the disturbing creature designs, but its philosophical exploration of the boundaries of humanity and the ethical implications of playing God with genetic engineering. The Island of Dr. Moreau faced a slew of censorship for its grotesque imagery, with several countries banning it due to its blasphemous content, particularly in relation to religious groups' objections to the theme of man altering creation. Behind the scenes, the film was infamous for its chaotic production, with original director Richard Stanley fired just days into shooting and Brando's eccentric behavior adding to the turmoil. The film's troubled production history only adds to its mystique, leaving behind a film that's part camp, part horror, but wholly fascinating in its exploration of mankind's attempt to control nature. As we look back at these groundbreaking 90s sci-fi films, it's clear that they weren't just ahead of their time, they were warnings. From exploring the dark side of technology to questioning the very fabric of humanity, these movies pushed the envelope and challenged the status quo. Though many faced censorship and backlash, their messages remain incredibly relevant today, urging us to reflect on the path we're on. As you dive into these cinematic gems, remember, sometimes the most shocking stories are the ones that reveal uncomfortable truths about the world we live in. What's your take on these controversial classics?